You are listening to Meet the Thriller Author, the podcast where I interview writers of mysteries, thrillers, and suspense books. I'm your host, Alan Peterson, and this is episode number 59. In this episode, I'm interviewing Carolyn Dean. Carolyn has been a published author for a while. She's published under different pen names and different genres, but is now writing cozy mysteries set in a small coastal town in Oregon. She has 8 books now in her Ravenwood Cove Cozy Mystery series, which is doing so well. She's got more books coming out. And I actually met Caroline about a month ago in Las Vegas at a writers' convention, and she was heading up a panel for mystery writers and mystery suspense and thriller writers, and she's just such great energy and very kind with her information. So I said I need to get her on the podcast, and so lucky for us, she agreed. And so in this interview, I'm going to be talking to her about cozy mysteries and writing and how to get yourself motivated and all that good stuff. So here's my interview with Carolyn Dean. Hey everybody, this is Alan Peterson with Meet the Thriller Author. And for this episode of the podcast, I have Carolyn Dean on Skype. How are you, Caroline?
Hi, good morning, Alan. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Can you tell the readers a little bit about yourself and your background?
I've been self-publishing for 3 years. Just had my 3-year author anniversary. I have 2 previous pen names, and this is my newest pen name. Started publishing under Carolyn Dean in July of 2016, and I currently have 8 books out in one series. It's a Ravenwood Cove Cozy Mystery series. And then I am starting a new series, which will be the Brightwood Bay series that will be coming out starting in December. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Wow, you've been busy.
I am. I'm a full-time author, and I love what I do. I'm having such a great time.
Can you describe to the listeners your books if they aren't familiar with your novels?
Well, I was interested, actually, Alan, that you asked me to be on here because I know that you do mystery writers as well as thrillers, and that makes me happy because I tend to be kind of the opposite end of the spectrum from thriller. My mysteries are what are called cozy mysteries, which are going to be, I do a traditional, and my version of that is no swearing. There's going to be a dead guy probably, but he's going to be very, very bad. And it's okay that he's dead. People are kind of happy. And the puzzle is just as important as the characters. There's a lot of very character-driven plot going on with cozy mysteries, and I really enjoy that part.
Were you a fan of cozy mysteries before you started to write them as a reader?
You know, I think I was, and I didn't really know what they are because it's such a weird name for them. You know, cozy mysteries. You say cozy mysteries, nobody, unless you really read them, they don't know what they are. But if you think about mysteries like Murder, She Wrote, that's in that genre. Things like that, which were entertaining, cute little puzzle, fun characters. I think I was a fan of that, and then I started reading them, and I found some that I really enjoyed. They're designed to be entertainment. Mine tend to be very nostalgic, and I have people that really enjoy kind of immersing themselves in a world that is what they'd want the world to be, even if there is dead people in it. But they enjoy having a small town around them, and maybe the language like that, and the people like that. So I guess I was a fan actually before I knew even what cozies were.
Yes, even Agatha Christie, would her books be considered like a cozy mysteries?
Some of them definitely, yes. If you think also about some things she's done, where a lot of it is based on a character, Hercule Poirot, and looking at things like Miss Marple, mm-hmm. where it's about the character of the inspector, and that person's habits, their sidekicks, their past, and who they're interested in, what their fears are. Maybe it isn't so much about a car chase or a gore or something like that. So in some ways, yes.
And so the characters and the towns are really important in the cozy mysteries, obviously. Then
I think so. I think the town, if it's done right, can actually be a character almost itself. My first series that I'm known for is Ravenwood Cove, and I actually have readers that write me and say, "Can you tell me exactly where that is? I'd really love to go visit."
Oh, cool.
Which is, yeah, it's so sweet. But I have to write them back and say, "I'm really sorry, but the only place it lives right now is in my head." So, but the town, if you've ever read a series of books that you love, you get so that you know where the hardware store is next to the ice cream parlor that they just reopened, and you know that there are going to be dog bowls outside on the sidewalk, and you know that there's going to be steps down to the beach, and you know what it's like to go fly a kite on that beach. You get so you not only know the people, but the surroundings become a structure for them to live in, and it's very important.
And when you started writing the Ravenwood Cove mysteries, did you have is there like several towns that you knew that you kind of used as inspiration, or?
Exactly, and I actually grew up in Oregon, and so my favorite thing to do when I was little was my folks would take us to the beach. So anywhere from Lincoln City on down, you just kind of go down 101, and there are all these lovely little beach towns, and some actually are not on 101. You can actually get off and find some that maybe got bypassed a little bit because that main highway is not there, and they're just charming. They're full of antique shops, and for me, it was parts of my childhood. I remember things like Pixie Kitchen and Lincoln City, which is now burned and gone, and it hasn't been there for 20 years. But when I write my books, I think about the things that I loved there as a child, you know, going to the candy store that had rock candy, and getting down on the beach and making sand castles and things like that. So definitely.
Your latest release, your latest book in the series?
The latest book in the series actually is the 8th in the series, and I'm going to blank on this because I haven't had my coffee yet, Alan. This is very early for me. It's Fruit, Flower, and Flames. And they're actually, you can probably guess from that title that there is a fire in the book that involves the mystery. So that's my newest one that's out.
Oh, yeah, and I read your first one, and it was a lot of fun. With the she was doing the remodeling, and then also there's a dead body, and that kind of like all the adventure starts from there. I thought I think that's what makes it so fun with these cozies, because you're kind of then like wondering the whole time. You're kind of like in the background of like, okay, well, what the heck happened?
Exactly, and that's part of the fun of writing it. Is I have to admit, I read the reviews people give me on Amazon and try to see if they're enjoying it, how I can improve, what really spoke to them, and it always gives me great pleasure to have somebody write and say, you know, I didn't guess the killer until the very last of the book. And that's exciting for me to know, it wasn't too obvious, that there were a few twists and turns, and it made them want to keep flipping the pages to find out who the bad guy really was.
Just we're talking a little bit before the started recording about your book is, I believe it's Dune, Doc, and a Dead Man, which is just hit #1 on all of the Amazon's Kindle store. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So they're doing very, very well. So the readers are really enjoying your novels.
Oh, you know, we've had a great year. I was just looking at for statistics on books and how this series is done, and we're coming up on 400,000 books that are in circulation. And to be fair, to be completely transparent, that does include books that have been free. I've had 2 book bubs since. In the last 6 or 7 months here, and but to have, you know, basically that's well over 300,000 books that people have decided to read or to buy or to borrow. I mean, it's just amazing to me. I get emails from people who say the book was entertaining and helped me through chemo. You know, I was having a rough time in my family, and it diverted me, and I enjoyed it. You know, if I weren't being paid for this, those emails alone would just make it so amazing to be an author.
How you're helping people like that. You only think about it's just a fun read, but for some people it really is a big comfort and if they're having troubles in their lives. So that's so cool that you're touching people in that way. Well,
you think about all the garbage people are reading on the news and the world and Facebook's opinions and politics and whatever's going on, and no matter where people stand on anything, I get so that I don't want to read it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's people talking about hatred and fear, and to have some little bit of the world where you can get away from that and have a diversion with people you like. It's not exactly solving the world's problems, and it's not exactly high literature, but maybe it has its place.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. So how long have you been writing for?
Oh, I've been writing for years. I remember being in grade school and coming home from. I'm an avid reader. I'm a natural speed reader, and I remember coming home. It was probably third grade or fourth grade, and putting down my lunchbox and telling my mom, "I'm going to be an author." And she was she's a really great mom, and she said, "That's great," and she completely supported that. And then, of course, I went and did the normal grown-up things that normal people do. Went and did college and went and got married and jobs and all that sort of stuff. And then I had a coworker that was writing, and she was doing well. And she talked to me a little bit about it. This is when self-publishing was very, very new. And I thought, you know what, I've got manuscripts sitting that maybe I should go dust those off and see if I'm terrible or if those were any good. Are there anything that's salvageable, or could I do this? And it all worked out. I never felt like I fit in really well in a corporate world. I tend to like a little bit more flexibility than that. So this has really worked out well. I'm loving what I do.
Yeah, I think for creative types, it's kind of hard to be sitting in an office 9 to 5 or 8 to 7. The 9 to 5. I think that those days are long gone for most people in the corporate world.
Yeah, and that. I bet you've got a lot of people who are listening to this that are nodding their heads and going, "Oh yes, I completely understand that." The way that I actually wound up being able to be a full-time author is because I'm a parent. I'm active in my community, in my church. At the time, I had 3 teenagers at home, and my husband has his own business, so I was helping doing accounting, things like that. But the way that I did it is sometimes you've just got to dig in and say, I'm going to give it my best shot, because if I don't do this now, I'm going to really regret it. So I'd get up at 5 in the morning, and I told my boss for the paycheck job, I'm going to be coming in at 9, and there wasn't any question on that. I needed to have that time in the morning. So I would write from 5 till 8 in the morning and get as many words in as I can. Then I would go to work and have all that story still in my head while I'm working a normal cubicle job. And then when I come home, I have to hit the ground running for household and business and teenagers and food and all the normal grown-up responsibility stuff. So I just want to tell people, if you're listening to this and thinking about wanting to be an author and wanting to either supplement your income or express yourself, which is so important, or help other people or quit your job or whatever, there are a lot of people who have done it. Keep going. You can do it.
Yeah, that's a nice thing, because I think for a lot of people, it just depends what they want to do. Like if someone just wants to do it for fun on the side or for a hobby, that's fine too. But the whole spectrum is out there for, if you, like you said, even go, if somebody wants to do it full time, it's going to take more work, of course, but it's all there for the taking right now. I think it's an exciting time in publishing for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And maybe somebody's just looking to, and I don't mean just in a derogatory way at all, maybe they're thinking, hey, you know what, if I had an extra little bit of income, that would be great. That's a great goal. If your goal is, one of the people that I helped publish, who's here in my hometown, actually was a young widow, and she wanted to publish a book of poetry to honor her husband, both about their love affair and then about how everything happened after his passing and all those feelings. And she put that book of poetry up, and to be able to express herself and get that out in the world and maybe help other young widows, I think is amazing. So whatever your goal is, I say go for it.
And so what inspired you to write your first book? I mean, you've been thinking about it since the 3rd grade, right?
Well, first published book or first book that's sitting in a drawer somewhere?
Oh,
Are you thinking?
yeah, first published book.
Okay, well, if anybody from my former job's listening to this, I love you very much. But the reality is, maybe because I didn't fit in the corporate world as well, I actually enjoyed the company I was working for, but I have to admit, maybe I've got a mercenary heart. I really was looking for something to help my family out financially. That was pretty much the goal. And also, I knew I had children who were growing up and were having all the normal teenage stuff go on. And I wanted more time with them. I really wanted to be able to be there for them. I'm actually, at this point, I'm able to homeschool one of my children who was struggling a bit in school. She was getting pretty bored. So we're doing things at home, and writing has given me the ability to do that. So that's extremely motivating.
Obviously, these are, there's a lot of bad things going on in these little towns, a lot of murders and stuff. So where do you get all these ideas? Because you have to mix it up, right? I mean, are you always thinking about ways of killing people?
Isn't that sad? Well, actually, it's a really great question. I was recently at a convention where I was kind of frustrated because I had ordered a special T-shirt to wear at this authors convention, and it has a picture of Jessica Fletcher, and she's the Angela Lansbury from Murder, She Wrote. And if you've ever watched that show, you know that she lives in a little town, and it's very character-driven. It's very cozy mystery. And I wanted the shirt because it had a picture of her on it, and underneath it, it says, "I killed them. I killed them all."
I like that.
And I thought that was so great because I always thought about, the little town, and the people were dropping like flies, and I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this with my sweet little town on the Oregon coast and not just kill half the population off? So do I think about killing people? Yeah, I do. But I have a really great resource. My uncle is a retired homicide detective. Who also was an assistant medical examiner and polygraph expert. So I have been able to, when I have questions, I come up with a plot, but if I need to make sure that I'm not doing something silly with the procedure, I can call him. So that helps.
Yeah, that's a great contact to have.
Oh, yeah, he's good people. He definitely knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. So,
do you find, is that for the readers, is that like, I would imagine it's important that like this, when you're describing something, that it's realistic, or it's or if not, you'll hear from the readers, or is that an important component to the writing?
Well, my audience, the people who read my sort of book, really have a spectrum of people who are interested mostly in the characters versus somebody who's going to be really checking out the procedure versus somebody who's maybe checking me out for typos. So, if I blow it, I would expect and I would hope that they would drop me an email or let me know. You said that the medical examiner or the coroner would do this, and that actually is not correct. And I would thank them and go and check that because it is important for me to have it be realistic. Yeah, I'm hoping I'm doing it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think wasn't that skit of Star Trek where they're asking, oh, this episode it wasn't possible to go through this wormhole because of this and that or whatever it was, black hole. So yeah, I could imagine how that goes too. Same thing with when I'm writing as well too. You always have somebody saying, "Oh, that highway doesn't go all the way through," like you said in your book. It's like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. It's like, oops.
Yeah, I've got a really great friend who writes westerns, and I mean, he is a huge research bug, does a fabulous job. And when he had his last Western come out, he had a guy who was a gunsmith write him and said, "Love your books, love your character, your writing's wonderful. Just wanted you to know that this officer would never have had that type of pistol." So you do the best you can, and you've got a lot of sharp readers out there, and they'll let you know if you did a boo-boo. And like me, he was very grateful to have that information. And
that's awesome.
Fix it.
It's like a free proofread.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, or actually they're paying you and they're helping you proofread. So yeah.
Well, I try to do giveaways and be good to my readers too, because they're definitely good to me.
Mm-hmm. And so is that so you have a pretty a busy publishing schedule? Is that a demand from your readers that they can't get, they want to have more new books coming out all the time? Is that how do you manage that? How do you manage that?
How do I manage to write so fast, or how do I manage to
Yes, how do you
meet their expectations?
Yes, how do you manage to meet their expectations by giving them new books all the time?
Well, I think that one of the important things is that a reader, I know, I can speak as a reader because I'm definitely one, is I don't like starting a series and not knowing if it's not going to continue. If I really like that writer's style, I want to be able to find the next one and not think about it. We're all busy. I mean, we've got all these responsibilities in the world, and we don't want to have to think about it. So one of the things I do is I do pre-orders for my books so that when somebody ends one of my books, they can go find the other one if they're interested. And that seems to really help.
Oh, wow. And was that, I mean, I'm sure now you got it down pat, but in the beginning, were you a little nervous about the pre-order?
I'm still nervous about pre-orders every once in a while. Well, as an author also, it's good to have a deadline. And
yes.
You definitely have a deadline. If you've told people, I'm going to be having this available on such and such a day, you have to have that ready. So, and it's hard because I get emails from people who say, can't you write this faster? I want to know what happens with this character. And I'm going as fast as I can.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool to get those emails, but that's amazing.
Oh, well, it's
a little pressure.
But I write them back and tell them when to expect it and let them just know what's going on and try to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to access that next book so they know what's coming, that it is the series is going to continue, is not just getting abandoned, that they'll be able to find it.
And so what's your writing process? Do you outline all these stories, or do you sort of start writing them?
I do use an outline, and the reason for it is there are a lot of different genres that maybe some people have a style that where they're pantsing, it's called, where they're writing by the seat of their pants and they're able to start and just let it flow and just be super creative, and I love that. But with mysteries, you want to make sure that you don't leave any loopholes out there. So with me, before I actually outline, I start with the people, and I'll start with the dead guy. Why is he dead? What did he do? What's his secret? Who would want him dead? How did they kill him? And that, a lot of times, you'll be surprised how much just answering those simple questions will get you to the rest of your outline about how it's discovered that he's dead. What areas of drama are going on? Who are the other suspects? What are the red herrings? With mysteries, you really have to have those closed up and tight. You can't just necessarily flow to one scene to another without having those in place.
Oh, so that's kind of cool. So you figure out the murder backwards. And then you work backwards. Yeah, okay, yeah. So that's awesome. Yeah. And
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you think about it, any mystery you've seen, even think about the movie for Murder on the Orient Express is out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about the ending on that, or if you've read the book, which is fabulous, you think about how it has to all go backwards. That you have to start with who's the dead guy, what did they do, and who wants him dead. And then the rest of it, if you write backwards, it starts to make sense.
I would imagine also with your books, because or with Cozy Mysteries, there's a lot of characters. Sometimes some books only will have a handful of characters, but yours, there's a lot of characters in there. It would be hard to keep track of everybody if you're just going by the seat of your pants.
Well, I know a lot of my fellow authors love Scrivener, and they have different methods for keeping the worlds, which is their towns or their universes or whatever it is that they're writing about straight. With me, I actually use a spreadsheet and use it so that I can tell you if you let me look at the spreadsheet, I don't have everything memorized, but I can tell you how many creams that guy had in his coffee and what the name of his neighbor's dog was, and all those little things that make it so it's consistent, that it's a real world from one book to the next. And that's been very important. I do have a lot of characters in my books. I have a lot of relationships. I want to know what book did they first show up in, and what was their role. Were they a suspect? Were they a bad guy? Were they the milkman? I need to know all that stuff if I'm going to talk about them in the future. And then they start to get to the point where the some of the characters wake me up and say, go tell my story. I have an idea about what should be happening today. And that's when it really gets to be fun, is all those details about those characters that I have in that silly, huge spreadsheet kind of coalesce and make it so hopefully they're three-dimensional characters that have different voices. That's the goal, at least. I'm working on it. Always trying to get better.
And then do you use Word to write the actual manuscript?
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm. I have Scrivener, and I have lots of author friends that love it. Yeah, I played with it, but also my books are not big. They're not big science fiction, 120,000 words. The way that I write also, because I keep track of anything that is an open loop that I have not completed, and actually I have a block of text in my Word document that shows anything that needs to be completed. The style of writing that I do for outlining and everything, it works for me. It may not work for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like making soup. The way I write is, you start with your basics, what your meat is and maybe what your broth is. But as you go through the soup and you're tasting it, you're going, I really need more spice here. And maybe if I put in some tomatoes and veggies, that to me is how I write my mysteries. Completely nonlinear, completely all over the board. But the soup turns out, people seem to like the soup okay.
Yeah, seems to be working for you. So yeah, that's absolutely no. A lot of it's gonna. I should go back and because I was asked what the writers that I interview what they use, and I bet the majority use Word because you have Scrivener so popular, especially in the indie world. But it's
a great program.
Yeah, but it's whatever works for you as a writer is all that matters, really. So yeah, because a lot of people find that Scrivener is just too much, too overwhelming, and there's too much stuff on there that they don't use, and so use
I've got a lot of friends who are think best with a pen and a pad of paper, and that's awesome. Whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm. Was it George R.R. Martin uses a DOS program to write his huge epics?
Does he really?
Yeah, I saw that he was in an interview.
Oh, that's so hardcore.
Yeah, he uses what's it called? WordStar, which is like, from like the old. 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm dating myself, but I know actually what that is. So.
Oh yeah, I mean I don't know what it is at all.
Yeah, I do, but that's really impressive. That would scare me to death to use that actually. But
yeah.
If it works for him, he seems to be doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing all right. So yeah, and so now I have to ask you now, in your books, does any of your personality or like your friends and family, do they all make it into your stories at all?
You're going to make me tell all my stuff, aren't you, Alan?
Yes, that's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. With me, I have the one character in there that everybody writes and says, don't kill her ever, is a 90-year-old lady named Mrs. Granger. And Mrs. Granger is snarky, and she's 90 years old. She's got nothing to lose. And she'll tell you whatever she's just thinking on her mind. And that woman is actually an amalgam between my grandmother and an elderly lady who was a dear friend of mine, who's both of them have since passed away. I actually have a bunch of characters in there that are people or even pets that have passed away, and that sounds kind of weird. That it's a way for me to have them live on and kind of have their personalities, and the fun part that was them be in my little world I created. One of the things that I get email on also is in the first book, and I don't think I'm giving away too much here. The main character, her name's Amanda, gets very upset about the way the town is treating her. So she takes a bunch of big old seashells, puts them in a backpack, and goes down to the beach in the morning and dawn and starts digging holes and burying them in the sand. Now, these seashells aren't normal Oregon coast seashells. They're exotic, big conch shells and cowrie shells from Africa, all over the world, that were in somebody's collection. And she winds up burying them. So the kids, you're out doing a sandcastle when you're 6 years old and you dig up some enormous, gorgeous shell. It's like buried treasure. And she winds up continuing this, doing little glass floats and things like that, digging them into the sand just to delight other people. And that actually is after my grandmother passed away. She had been a collector of shells, and I did that to honor her. What do you do with boxes and boxes of gorgeous seashells from all over the world? So I was able to go down and dig them in, it wasn't going to hurt anything on the beach. I didn't think it's not an environmental issue or anything like that. And it was great fun to do that and just kind of honor her memory and think about the delight somebody's going to have when maybe the tide uncovers it, or they're going to dig it up, or whatever, and have them wonder, well, I wonder where this came from. So it's a weird little piece in that book, but yeah, way too much of me probably is in these books.
That is so cool that you did that. I remember when I was a kid with my dad, we were doing some work at the house, and the wall took down the wall, and inside somebody had put in a note, like,
Ooh.
I don't know, 20 years ago. And it was just something like, hey, their name and what year they lived there, and that was it. But it was like, yeah, it was like amazing. And so I kind of
isn't that intriguing?
So yeah, so that kind of reminded me of that. And this was back in the '80s, so there was an internet. I couldn't go Google figure out who the person was. So that was that, But it always stuck with me. So when you said that about burying these treasures, like, that's the first thing that came into my mind.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and it's intriguing, isn't it? It's its own little mystery about, that somebody saying, "Here I was," and remember me, and I think that's a great start to a mystery. I have one of the mysteries. I won't tell you which one because you'll have to go find it. But where somebody's remodeling the staircase and finds a book actually in the staircase that was left by a previous tenant.
Ooh, that's even more cooler than a note.
Oh, but it's the same idea of. I love something like that makes you really wonder about why was that put there and who did that.
And so when you're writing, what are some of the challenges when you're writing your books? I mean, is it like the research or just the getting down and putting the words in?
Well, I am kind of a world-class procrastinator. So I have times where I have to turn off my Wi-Fi completely to be able to focus and do my books. I get also homeschooling takes time with my child's at home with me. But really, there are things that are struggles, and I could complain about the difficulties on them. But the bottom line is now I have more time than I used to. I'm still developing tools to make it more efficient, make it so that I can get these books out faster, to make them better. Better editing, better formatting, better stories. All of that's really important to me to try to improve that. So when I think about roadblocks and things that make it tough, I think most of them really are myself, and it's tempting when you first go from, basically I was working two jobs, trying to write and trying to do a paycheck job. When you first get that heady sense of freedom, I took some time off over the summer because it was lovely just to have a day reading in the hammock. So now that I've kind of got back on my feet and I'm back working again and trying to see now what's a reasonable schedule for putting these out and having a consistent time of day that I write. It's starting to tighten up. I'm not certain exactly what it's going to be, but it's improving all the time.
And do you usually write in the same spot? Do you have like a dedicated office, or do you go out to coffee shops?
I can't do coffee shops. I get really distracted. I start wondering about the guy next to me and what he's up to, and I write best in silence. Mm-hmm. So I actually do have a little office in my house. Right now, we have a little mother-in-law apartment that's attached to our house too, and I've kind of taken that over. We don't have anybody in it right now. We have guests that'll be coming back in December, but I'm talking to you from that apartment today because I can take over the kitchen table and sprawl all my stuff out, and it makes it so that I don't have all the distractions of thinking, well, let me just go see what's going on with the laundry or get the things thrown in the crock pot or see what the kid's up to. I don't do well with distractions, so anything that can be a calm place is good. So my husband actually took the office that's in the house was actually an unused utility room that he finished off for me just so I'd have a place to write. And that's been very helpful.
Oh, so that's good. So yeah, it's like a dedicated, like you're going to the office. You go, yeah, that's awesome.
That's it. Yeah. It's to the point with teens still at home that I've decided I'm going to this is kind of a joke, but kind of not. I may actually do this. I want to set it up like a dark room where it has the red light over the door.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's really hard when you're writing to keep going when you're kind of in a groove and something's happening. You've got the ideas and your fingers are flying and you know exactly what you want. And then you have somebody coming in going, Mom, I need my tennis shoes, clean or whatever. I need this sign. Can I get money for all that stuff?
Yeah.
Anytime it's distracting, it takes me out of that groove. And my hat's off to the people who that doesn't affect. It definitely affects me. So I may actually put a red light up and say, if the red light's on, it better be a true emergency. You better be bleeding, on fire, something horrible. Grandma's at the door.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think people don't realize when they see you on the computer, they just figure you're just on a computer, but it really takes you out of the zone.
It does, and I understand why it doesn't. Also, one thing with now being at home is it just looks like you're accessible all the time for whatever people need, and I understand that. But the family has learned, and I've kind of made it very clear that these are my office hours. This is how I'm available, and this is when I'm available. And they're to their credit, they're rising to that pretty well. Still working on it.
So you said you're working on a new series, or have you?
I am.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Excited.
Or
This is going to be such a fun series. It's called Brightwater Bay, and Brightwater Bay is another imaginary town on the West Coast. But this one of my favorite places in the world is the San Juan Islands up there, right by Canada, in the north corner of Washington State. And they're just beautiful. If you've ever been in the San Juans, it's a magical place, dotted tons of islands, some that are inhabited, some that are connected by ferries, and some that you have to get to by float plane or boat. And so I decided I really wanted to write something there where Brightwater Bay has my little imaginary town has its own resort, and my character moves from Arizona to the north part of Washington here by all these little islands close to a ferry terminal that goes out to them. And things that happen to her, you think about all the tourists that are coming through, you think it's going to be different weather and a different town and different characters. And it's actually the first book in that is going to be part of a bundle with two other authors. I'm working with Beth Byers and Angela Blackmore. And the first book will be available December 3rd on Amazon. So I'm pretty excited about it. We're down to the final editing on it right now. And I think it's some of the best writing I've ever done.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. And how was it working with other authors in a project? Was that?
Well, we're just starting off. The bundle, actually, that the first book is in, the other two authors each have a book in their own series in that bundle, and then the third book in the series is mine, which will be the first one in Brightwater Bay. I'm just starting to work with Angela and with Beth. They're both amazing people, and I think what's going to happen, we are going to be collaborating to make sure that those Brightwater Bay books are going to be coming out pretty darn quick. We know people. I know what I'm excited about a series. I want to read the next one just like eating a potato chip.
Yeah.
I want to have it right there and just snap it up and see what happened. I'm an author who hates cliffhangers. I hate them. I know they sell books, but I don't do that for my readers because I hate them too. But I know that sometimes you want to know, is this couple going to get together? Or, she was doing this project and what happened with that? Or so the goal is to get the books out quickly. So I'll be working with Angela and Beth to be able to do that. We'll be collaborating on some books in Brightwater Bay, but I'll be reading all of them and just making sure that people who love Ravenwood Cove hopefully will love Brightwater Bay too.
Oh, yes, that sounds like a lot of fun. And then, so you're going to be bouncing between those two towns now.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun.
The good thing about it is I've been to Ravenwood Cove enough that I can tell you exactly, where the butcher store is and where the florist store is and, what's playing for old-fashioned movies at the theater. And, yeah, that stuff's in my head and on my spreadsheet. So it's not as hard as you might think it is.
And we'll see. And I'll have links to your website and to your Amazon page on on the website. You're
Thanks.
at, where can readers find you? It's a Carolyn L. Dean.
Actually, yeah, I actually am Carolyn L. Dean. The reason is there's a lady who I'm certain she's very lovely, but who writes under the name Carolyn Dean, and she writes about writes nonfiction about irritable bowel syndrome. That's just a hint, people. That's not me. So that I didn't get confused with her, I did use a middle initial of L. My website, though, is carolyndeanbooks.com.
Any final advice, or we have listeners who are aspiring writers and not just readers? Maybe for the writers out there that are trying to figure this out.
I know it's really overwhelming for aspiring writers, whether you're just newly published and trying to get that book to take off, or that brand new series to take off, or if you're writing and feeling disillusioned and not certain you can do that. I'm going to give you a piece of advice. And part of this is coming from the fact that this is my third pen name. I have two other ones. I have one that was a romance pen name and one that's a nonfiction pen name. And if you haven't published yet, the best way for you to learn about it is stop researching. Go and publish it. Publish it if you're going to. It doesn't have to be the best book ever. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't necessarily have to be the book of your heart. But hit the publish button, and you're going to learn so much more by doing and by making those mistakes and by being out in the world and making connections with other authors than you will if you fuss over every last sentence that you're doing and wait for it to be perfect. It's so scary. I understand. Trust me. I'm an introvert. I hate people critiquing my stuff. It's enormously scary to get your stuff out in the world, to get your writing and your baby out in the world and have people look it over and think about it. But the bottom line is, if you don't hit the publish button, you're never going to learn as much, and you're never going to get that opportunity. And after you do that first time publishing, not only will you learn more, but you're going to learn it's not as scary as you thought it was. So if you're just starting out and you're just have your first one and you're really worried about trying to do advertising and when to make it free and all that sort of stuff, there are a lot of author resources on Facebook that are great. Alan and I met because of the group 20 Books to 50K, which is started by Michael Anderle. And there are a lot of places you can get information from other authors that can help boost you in your journey toward being able to get wherever it is that you want to go. If it's to get that book of your heart out, or if it's to make some extra income, either way, I wish you well on your journey. I wish you well on whatever your goal is, because I believe in you. I've seen people just come from nothing and done tremendously well at their goal, at whatever it is that they want.
Yeah, it's great advice. Yeah, it's very, very motivational. It's like, yes, because you're excited. I hope that goes through.
Well, it was. Now, Alan, you've talked to me. I'm going to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to tell your readers. Alan and I had met first time here at a convention. And what's been really fun is one thing's about being around those other authors now. Alan, I hear rumors that you're writing. Is that true?
It's true. Yes, I was.
Oh.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, a little confessional. Well, my listeners and readers know that I haven't published anything in over 2 years. So. And now the floodgates have opened.
Well, yeah. You don't make me get my cattle prod here. Because you gotta. I hate to sound like Nike, but just do it, buddy.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And that was an important part of getting out there. I'm also an introvert myself. I'm kind of a shy. I know it's hard to believe, because we're here yapping. But when you're in the person, getting out there, it's hard. But yeah, it was one of the best things that I've done in a while. And Carolyn was very motivating for me. So that's why I was like, I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Oh, that's sweet. I'll bet you didn't know when I was chairing the mystery panel there that my knees were shaking, because standing up in front of people is still kind of scary. But talking with you, I could do that.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for being so inspiring. I really appreciate it. Oh,
Alan, I'm very honored that you asked me to be on your podcast, and I just want to wish anybody who's listening well. And if you want to find me, that's great as a reader. And if you're an author or aspiring author, can't wait to see what you're going to put out in the world.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meet the Thriller Author. I'd like to ask you to please review and rate this podcast over on iTunes. It really helps me get the word out. If you take a few seconds of your time to do that, it would be much appreciated. You can also visit my website at thrillingreads.com/podcast for show notes on this episode, as well as information about the podcast in general. And you can also sign up for my mailing list there. You'll be getting special offers from our guests, as well as information, behind the scenes information on the podcast. And please do visit my author website at alanpeterson.com. I appreciate your support. And so until next episode, I will talk to you then.